The emptiness of space had a sound. Marcus Webb discovered this during his 612th day alone on Research Station Omega-7. It wasn't silence exactly, but something deeper, more profound. The kind of quiet that made your heartbeat sound like thunder, and your breathing feel like storms. Marcus pressed his palm against the observation window, watching distant stars flicker like dying candles. Earth's last transmission had been simple. Maintain position. Monitor the void. The Matriarch's protocols must be followed, and nothing. No explanations, no updates. No human voices to remind him he wasn't the last man in the universe. The station hummed around him with mechanical precision. Life support systems recycled his breath, water purifiers cleaned his waste, and food processors created meals that tasted like memories of real cooking. Everything worked perfectly, which somehow made the loneliness worse. Night cycles were the hardest, not because space had real nights, but because his body still craved the rhythm of darkness and light. During these artificial evenings, Marcus would dim the lights and pretend he could smell rain or hear wind through trees. Instead, he heard only the station's heartbeat and his own thoughts, growing stranger each day. Then came the visitors. It started on day 15 after the communication blackout. The lights flickered at exactly midnight. Station time. It's not the usual power fluctuations from solar storms, but something deliberate. The main door's security lock clicked open with a soft hiss. Marcus grabbed the plasma cutter from his workbench, hands shaking. Protocol demanded he remain calm, document everything, and never engage hostile entities. But protocol hadn't prepared him for this. A figure stepped through the doorway. Tall, wrapped in flowing material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible weapons, no threatening gestures. It simply stood there, watching him with what might have been eyes hidden beneath shadows. Marcus raised the cutter. But his visitor showed no reaction. It moved with fluid grace to the corner of his living quarters and sat cross-legged on the floor. Then it waited. Hours passed. Marcus's arms grew tired holding the weapon. His visitor never moved, never made a sound. As artificial dawn approached, it stood smoothly and walked back to the door. Just before leaving, it turned toward Marcus and tilted its head slightly, as if acknowledging his presence. Then it was gone. The next night, another visitor arrived. Different height, different posture, but the same routine. Silent observation from midnight until dawn. The third night brought a creature that seemed to shimmer like heat waves. The fourth, something so alien Marcus couldn't determine if it was organic or mechanical. Each visitor was unique, but all followed identical patterns. Arrive at midnight, observe without interaction, leave at dawn. Marcus stopped reaching for weapons. These beings weren't threatening him. They were studying him. The Matriarch's final words echoed in his memory. You serve by enduring. Do not resist the night visitors. They come with purpose. What purpose? What were they learning from watching a lonely human eat synthetic meals and stare at stars? Marcus began leaving food out, hoping for some response. The visitors ignored his offerings. He tried speaking to them, asking questions, even pleading for answers. They remained as silent as the void outside his windows. Weeks became months. The parade of alien observers continued with clockwork precision. Marcus stopped trying to understand and simply accepted. He was a specimen in some vast experiment, a data point in research he couldn't comprehend. But on the 65th night after first contact, everything changed. The lights dimmed as usual at midnight, but something felt different. The familiar hum that announced each visitor carried a new harmony, softer and more melodic. Marcus sat at his desk, sketching star formations to pass time. When his door whispered open, she stepped inside, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. Unlike the shadowy figures who had visited before, this being radiated gentle light from within her skin. Soft blue and silver patterns pulsed along her arms and neck like living tattoos. Her hair moved as if underwater, floating around a face that was unmistakably feminine, yet otherworldly beautiful. She wore garments that seemed woven from starlight itself, translucent fabrics that shifted between colors Marcus had no names for. Delicate jewelry, made from what looked like crystallized moonbeams, chimed softly as she moved. This visitor didn't go to the corner. Instead, she walked directly to Marcus's desk and studied his sketches with obvious intelligence. Her eyes, large and multifaceted like gems, reflected the station's lights in mesmerizing patterns. Marcus remained frozen, pencil still in his hand. Every other visitor had ignored him completely. This one was examining his artwork with what seemed like genuine interest. She picked up one of his drawings, a landscape of the crater fields visible from his observation deck. Her fingers traced the charcoal lines with reverence, as if she recognized the beauty he'd tried to capture. When she looked up at him, Marcus saw something impossible in her expression. Recognition, understanding, connection. For the first time in over a year, Marcus didn't feel alone. The being set the drawing down carefully and moved to the center of the room. She didn't sit in a corner like the others. Instead, she remained standing, watching Marcus with an intensity that made his heart race. "I'm Marcus," he whispered, breaking the silence that had defined these encounters for months. She tilted her head, clearly hearing him, but made no sound in response. However, she placed one glowing hand over her heart and then gestured toward him. The meaning felt clear. She was acknowledging their mutual existence. Marcus stood slowly, afraid to startle her. "You're different from the others." Again, no verbal response, but she nodded slightly. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed brighter, as if responding to his voice. He took a careful step closer. She didn't retreat. The light emanating from her skin cast dancing shadows on the walls, transforming his sterile quarters into something magical. "Are you from the Matriarch's fleet?" Marcus asked. This time her reaction was more complex. Her light dimmed slightly, and she looked toward the observation window where stars glittered in the darkness. When she turned back, there was something almost sad in her expression. Marcus felt drawn to comfort her, though he didn't understand why. "You don't have to be afraid. I won't hurt you." She approached him then, close enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her luminous skin. She raised one hand toward his face, stopping just short of contact. Her eyes searched his features as if memorizing them. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Marcus had never felt anything like this connection, this recognition of something profound happening. Despite their inability to communicate with words, she spent the entire night in his quarters, sometimes sitting near his workstation while he drew, other times standing by the window, gazing at the stars. Occasionally, she would hum softly, producing harmonies that made Marcus's chest vibrate with sympathetic resonance. When dawn approached, she moved toward the door as all visitors did, but unlike the others, she paused and looked back. Her hand touched the wall beside the entrance, and her fingertips left a faint glowing print that faded slowly. It was a promise. She would return. After she left, Marcus pressed his own hand against the spot where hers had been. The wall felt warm, as if her touch had left more than light behind. For the first time since Earth's communications died, Marcus smiled. Her name was Naya. Marcus didn't know how he knew this, but during her third visit, when she hummed those ethereal melodies, the name formed in his mind like a gift. When he whispered Naya aloud, her bioluminescent patterns flared brighter. Confirming his intuition, each night brought new discoveries. Naya no longer maintained the formal distance of other visitors. She explored his quarters with curious intelligence, examining his personal belongings with gentle hands. His collection of Earth's music fascinated her most. When Marcus played classical pieces, she swayed to the rhythms. Jazz made her laugh, a sound like crystal bells singing. But when he played love songs, she became still and thoughtful, her inner light pulsing in sync with the melodies. Their communication evolved beyond words. Marcus would point to objects and speak their names. Naya would touch them and hum in response, her sounds somehow conveying meaning he felt rather than understood. When she indicated the stars, her humming carried notes of longing. When she looked at him, the melody spoke of warmth and growing affection. The breakthrough came during her 7th visit. Marcus had prepared a meal, hoping she might share it with him. Instead of ignoring the food like other visitors, Naya approached the table with interest. She couldn't eat human food, but she seemed to understand the gesture. In response, she pressed her palms together and opened them to reveal a sphere of soft light. She offered it to Marcus, who cupped his hands to receive the gift. The light felt warm and nourishing, filling him with energy and contentment. It was her way of sharing a meal, of accepting his invitation to move beyond mere observation into genuine companionship. From that night forward, they spent hours together exploring each other's worlds through touch and gesture. Naya would show Marcus star patterns by tracing them with her glowing fingertips on his desk surface. He would respond by drawing pictures of Earth, trying to convey the beauty of oceans and forests to someone who lived among the stars. The intimacy between them grew with each encounter. Naya began sitting closer to Marcus while he worked. Sometimes she would rest her hand near his while he sketched, their fingers almost touching. The space between them crackled with unspoken attraction. During her 10th visit, Marcus gathered the courage to reach for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her skin felt like touching liquid starlight, warm and electric. They sat together on his narrow bunk, hands intertwined, communicating through touch what words couldn't express. Naya began staying later, sometimes remaining until well past dawn. Her patterns would shift from blue and silver to deeper purples, and gold's colors Marcus associated with contentment and desire. One morning, as artificial sunlight filled his quarters, Naya didn't leave. Instead, she moved to the observation window and gestured for Marcus to join her. Together, they watched the star field rotate slowly around them. And Naya began to sing. Her voice was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. Multiple harmonies, layered together, creating melodies that seemed to come from the cosmos itself. The song spoke of loneliness spanning light years, of hearts calling across the void, of love that transcended species and space. Marcus found himself crying, overwhelmed by the beauty and sadness in her voice. Naya noticed his tears and reached up to touch his face with infinite gentleness. Her fingertips glowed where they contacted his skin, as if his emotions were lighting her from within. "I think I'm falling in love with you," Marcus whispered. Naya's entire form blazed with radiant light, and her song shifted to something joyous and triumphant. She didn't need to understand his words to feel their meaning. But even as they drew closer, Marcus couldn't forget the Matriarch's warnings. He was supposed to observe, not interact. Visits had a purpose beyond his understanding, and his growing feelings for Naya were disrupting whatever plan had brought her to him. The guilt warred with his heart. Every touch, every shared moment, every note of her songs was technically a violation of his orders. Yet stopping seemed impossible. Naya had become his anchor in the endless dark, the one thing that made his exile bearable. He chose love over duty, not knowing that Naya was facing the same impossible choice from her side of their forbidden connection. The revelation came on Naya's 20th visit, delivered in words that shattered Marcus's understanding of everything they'd shared. "I was sent to study you," she said, speaking in perfect English for the first time. Marcus nearly fell from his chair. After weeks of communication through humming, gestures, and touch, hearing her voice in his own language felt like a physical blow. "You can speak?" he managed. Naya's light dimmed with what he now recognized as shame. "I have always understood your words. My people have studied human languages for generations." The betrayal cut deep. All their intimate moments, every whispered confidence he'd shared, thinking she couldn't understand. She had heard and comprehended completely. So this was all fake? Marcus stood and moved away from her, needing distance. "You were just pretending. Not to understand while you studied me like a lab rat? No?" Naya's form flared bright with distress. "Marcus, please listen. It began as observation, yes, but it became something else, something real." She approached him slowly, her movements careful and non-threatening. "The Matriarch sends visitors to test humans. She believes your species is too primitive for meaningful connection with ours, too violent, too selfish. And what's your conclusion?" "Doctor." Marcus's voice carried bitter sarcasm. "But she's wrong." Naya's response was immediate and fierce. You showed me kindness when you thought I couldn't understand. You shared your food, your art, your music. You gave me gentleness when you had every reason to be afraid. Marcus turned toward the observation window, staring at the stars that suddenly felt cold and hostile. So I passed your test? Congratulations on proving humans can be decent to pretty aliens. It stopped being a test the moment I chose to stay past dawn. Naya moved behind him, close enough that he could feel her warmth. Other humans failed because they couldn't see beyond their fear. But you saw me, Marcus. Not as an alien or a threat, but as a person. A person who was lying to me the entire time. Yes, she admitted quietly. I was supposed to observe for one night and report back. Instead, I've been coming here for weeks, risking everything to be near you. Marcus finally turned to face her. Naya's usual confident posture was gone, replaced by vulnerability that made her seem smaller and more human despite her otherworldly appearance. What happens when your matriarch finds out you've gone native? He asked. Naya's light flickered like a candle in wind. She already knows. My kind cannot hide our emotional states from her. She feels my attachment to you growing stronger each night, and she's coming here tonight. The words hit Marcus like ice water. Everything they'd built together was about to be destroyed by alien politics beyond his control. Will she hurt you for disobeying? Marcus asked, surprised by how much the answer mattered to him. That depends on what you choose to do when she arrives. What I choose? Naya stepped closer, her hands reaching toward his face. She's offering you a chance to join us, to leave this station and come to our world. But only if you can prove human emotions are strong enough to survive the transition. Instead of answering with words, Naya kissed him. Her lips were warm silk, and where they touched his skin, light spread like liquid fire. The sensation was overwhelming, electric, transforming. Marcus felt something fundamental shifting inside him, as if her kiss was rewriting his very DNA. When they separated, Marcus could see more than before. Colors beyond the human spectrum painted Naya's skin in patterns of impossible beauty. His hearing caught harmonies in the station's humming that had always been there, but unperceived. The bond changes you, Naya whispered against his lips. You more than purely human. But it's irreversible, and it requires absolute trust. Marcus looked into her multifaceted eyes and saw his future reflected there. A choice between the safety of his human limitations and the terrifying potential of transformation through love. Will you still want me if I'm no longer entirely human? He asked. Naya's smile could have powered stars. I fell in love with your soul, Marcus Webb, that will always be beautifully, wonderfully human. The station's lights flickered ominously, and both of them turned toward the door. The matriarch's arrival was imminent, and their time for choosing was nearly over. The matriarch entered like darkness made manifest, unlike Naya's gentle radiance. This being absorbed light, creating a void in Marcus's vision that hurt to perceive directly. Her presence filled the small quarters with crushing authority and ancient power. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once, vibrating through the station's hull and Marcus's bones simultaneously. You have exceeded your parameters, young one. Naya stepped protectively in front of Marcus, her own light blazing defiantly against the matriarch's darkness. I have found something worth protecting. You have found weakness, attachment to inferior biology that will diminish your purpose. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. The strange new sensitivity Naya's kiss had awakened, making the emotion burn brighter than ever before. Inferior? And we may be different, but we're not lesser. The matriarch's attention turned to him, and Marcus felt like an ant under a magnifying glass. You speak of equality while knowing nothing of our nature. This child has shown you kindness, and you mistake it for love. I mistake nothing. Marcus moved to stand beside Naya, taking her glowing hand in his. I know exactly what I feel, and I know what I'm choosing. What choice is that, little human? I choose her. I choose transformation. I choose to prove that love doesn't make us weak, makes us stronger than we ever imagined possible. The matriarch's darkness seemed to ripple with surprise. You would abandon your humanity for a being you've known mere weeks? Marcus looked at Naya, seeing past her alien beauty to the gentle soul beneath. I'm not abandoning my humanity. I'm expanding it, becoming something new that includes the best of both our kinds. Naya squeezed his hand, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The bond works both ways, Matriarch. I am changing too, becoming more than I was, through connection with his courage and compassion. Impossible. The trials have never produced successful fusion. Because you've been testing the wrong things, Marcus said. You looked for submission and compliance. But real love isn't about one person conquering another. It's about two people, choosing to become something greater together. The matriarch circled them, her void-like presence probing for weakness. Prove it. Complete the bonding process here now, under my observation. Show me this love can survive ultimate vulnerability. Felt fear spike through him. He didn't fully understand what the bonding process entailed, but Naya's sudden tension told him it was significant.
What does it involve?
He asked. Naya turned to face him fully, her eyes reflecting starfields. Complete emotional and physical merger. For a time, we become one being, sharing every thought, every feeling, every memory. If our connection is false, the process will tear us both apart, if it's true. We become the first of a new kind, Marcus finished. Understanding flooding through him, the matriarch's voice carried dark amusement. Many have died attempting such fusion. Are you certain your bond can survive seeing each other's true selves without filters or pretense? Marcus thought about everything he'd shared with Naya, his loneliness, his fears, his desperate hope for connection across the vast emptiness of space. She had seen him at his most vulnerable and chosen to return night after night. I'm certain. He said. Naya's form blazed like a newborn star. As am I. Together, they reached for each other. The moment their enhanced touch connected fully, the universe exploded into sensation. Marcus felt Naya's memories flooding through him, her loneliness among her own people, her wonder at human creativity, her growing love for his gentle strength. She experienced his isolation, his determination to maintain hope in impossible circumstances, his joy at finding someone who saw beyond surface differences to the soul beneath. Their forms began to merge, light and flesh becoming something entirely new. For terrifying moments, Marcus lost sense of where he ended and Naya began. But instead of dissolution, he found expansion. Her abilities became his humanity enriched her divine nature. When the process completed, they stood changed before the matriarch. Marcus retained his human appearance, but now carried Naya's bioluminescent patterns beneath his skin. Naya's ethereal beauty had gained human warmth and expressiveness. The matriarch studied them in silence before speaking. Impossible. You have achieved synthesis without losing individual identity. Love doesn't erase who we are, Naya said, her voice now carrying harmonies of both their kinds. It reveals who we can become. Marcus felt the truth of her words in every cell of his transformed body. We're proof that different species can unite without conquest or submission. It's just understanding, acceptance, and choice. Right. Darkness began to retreat. Perhaps it is time for my people to reconsider our assumptions about yours. This union will be studied, tested. No, Marcus said firmly. We won't be specimens. We'll be teachers, if you're willing to learn. For the first time, the matriarch's voice carried something like respect. Very well. Show us this new path you've discovered. As she departed, Marcus and Naya stood together at the observation window, watching ships emerge from hidden dimensions to escort them toward a future neither species had imagined possible. There, love had become a bridge between worlds, proof that the universe was vast enough for every kind of heart to find its home.